is better than getting your book perfect.
So really, what we want to chat about is, what does it take to go from the end of your first draft to this? This is the bit that we all want. Okay, so this is ours. This is the first time we are holding it together.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter how many books you have written. And Kate, this is your 5th book, my 8th book, plus a few others that I've written for other people. But it doesn't matter, because when we opened that box, a number of things happened. The first was, oh my God, we look like we've been on a sunbed for the last 8 months.
I know. Literally, I walked through Sarah's door and I was like, we look like a bit dragonish. It's too dark. It's not the color of the proof. And that's the thing. There's all these complicated parts that have to slot in and dovetail. So we came up with something yesterday that was, done is better than perfect. Because if you want it to be perfect, you're going to wait for 10 years. You're going to wait for 20 years. You're going to wait for 30 years. So, but it's hard because the ego gets involved. The kind of, oh my goodness, what have we done? What have we put out there? This is our brand. So why don't we go backwards a bit to, where did we start? 2 years ago.
Yeah, so we wanted to just explain to you what it, because you're sitting in the journey of writing. Some of you are further down the line, you're submitting. So we wanted to just give you a little bit of a bigger picture, because writing is one step on the journey of being an author, and there are many more steps. So we just want to reinforce that the stage you're at, whether you are writing, that mantra needs to hold true. Done is better than perfect. So when we had done, we started our book and we did a big show that we had written it in 4 days. 5 days.
5 days, yeah.
Right.
That was a year ago. That was last February. I came to Sarah's home and that's what we did. This is now a year later.
And we have
got it in our hands.
And I think the process was very interesting for us because we finished it off, what we thought was finished, right?
Yes.
We did our very best version of our book, and then we sent it to editors.
So often people look at us and they think, well, we're professional, we know what we're doing. Surely Sarah edits, surely I proofread. No, because one of the problems is you always need fresh eyes. You always need someone else, because there's only so many times. It's almost like every time you read your own manuscript or you go in and edit, it's like your iris gets smaller and smaller, because it's almost like you cannot see the words anymore. You can't look at them with fresh eyes. So we sent it off to the editor. Then we got back our first edit.
And lots of changes and suggestions.
But we weren't overwhelmed.
We weren't overwhelmed with our book. We looked at it and we thought, we can do a little bit better.
Yes, and I was like, Sarah, we're going into that loop that we tell writers not to go into, because you can go back in many times. But we did some structural reworking. Like we stood back and we almost put it at the other side of the table, and we were like, okay, we can do this better. We're not feeding the information in the right way to the reader. And the editor hadn't also quite helped us yet do that. So we did another re-edit. But I was overseas, Sarah was here. So we're doing that on Dropbox and saving copies. So that's a little bit of a complication that we had to navigate.
And I will say that last edit was really when it all clicked, because we had given it to somebody else. We could step back. It was more of a product in our hands. And we were thinking of the reader. We were saying, but how would they navigate this? But is this information in the right place?
We took some things out.
Took a lot out.
Because that's also interesting, because our book is actually called Write a Book in 100 Days. And you'll recognize the stock mucking about. But what we did as some bonus was we got a contributor, Tessa Graham, who is a brand expert. She contributed, and then we added in some bonus chapters about what happens when you have finished the first draft and how do you take it all the way to get to publishers. So those were bonus chapters. So what we did was we decided to reduce the gravitas of those, because the emphasis of the book was to plan and write your book in 100 days. So we kind of rejigged the emphasis. So we kept the emphasis then on part 1 and 2, and then gave Tessa the brand and reduced number 4 because it felt better.
Right.
And then we sent it back to the editor to check our edits, because we were like, we've done quite a little bit more. We had to pay a little more money.
We're going to pay more,
Yeah, because that's the process. Like, we were paying a professional editor. And then what happened? There was a bit of a delay. So then we thought, should we go back in again? And we thought, no, we're too close to it, because that's what happens. You get attached to their words. They're your babies. You've created them, and you can't see objectively. And then somehow it all dovetailed, and we got a proofreader.
Yes.
Who's actually my first editor. So he knows my style, he knows Sarah's style, very well known editor and proofreader, and just great with nonfiction books. Then it went for proofreading.
Yeah.
And that was another month.
Yes.
Yeah. Then we still No, wait. We're going squonk. We did not. We typeset it first. We got the order wrong.
Okay, yeah, we had a typeset,
So
right?
typeset, for those of you that don't know,
took a
because
long
it's the
time.
technicality, this is literally how the book looks. It's the layout. It's all the, can you see all the parts, the
Headings
chapters,
and
it's what the book presents like, which is a huge part of the readability.
yes,
And that process, we went backwards and forwards for, I don't know how long.
2 months.
Yeah.
A large part of the reader experience is how have you broken the book up? What does the font look like? How big or small are the pages? Are there diagrams or illustrations? So
And
that's
we-
your next stage, really.
And we
yeah.
pushed back quite a lot because we're both a little cheeky and we know what we want. So we were quite involved in that process. When it came back, we're like, yes, like that, don't like that. She gave us 2 options actually, and we had to choose font and blocks and something.
Yeah.
And then we still had to go through it, and then it went to the proofreader.
And then it's a proofreader.
Right.
So now, from our splash, we've written a book in 5 days. We are 9 months down the line, and we hadn't got a signed off book in our hands.
But we've spent a lot of money already.
We
so
spent
that's
a lot of
the
money.
thing, because we have published this under our name of Quickshift Publishing.
Our own little publishing company. that we've
because we want full rights. We wanted to own the full rights to it. So we had thought about a publisher. We kind of mulled that. We went down that road, and we thought, actually, no, we need to own this, and we want to do more with it. And that's what you can do when you have a brand. So we own this lock, stock, and barrel. And then even after the proofread, again, we're in separate countries, and it's different time zones. So you know what it's like working with people across the world. And then we did another kind of 2 proofreads. So Sarah said, okay, I'm going to go proofread the document, would save it, and then I would go in and proofread it. But again, like, you can still miss stuff. So I looked at a final copy, I thought, oh my God, is that a spelling mistake? Because it happens. And I'll never forget with my first book, my best friend says to me, have you found the mistake? And I'm like, well, you can't have the book because I've only just got it. What do you mean, have I found the mistake? She says, every book has a mistake. And that's where we say done is better than perfect.
It's better than perfect. And even now, when we got the book in our hands, half of me was insanely excited. I did a little happy dance. I grabbed it. I screamed. But the other part of my brain was saying, oh, the typeset's a bit off. The color treatment's a bit dark. Oh, the alignment's a bit high. So there's many levels of what happens in this process.
Yes, because the cover was then designed. We had to send the cover off. We get a proof of the cover when we've chosen the printer. And the first one wasn't perfect. We got another one. And actually, the first one was better than the second one. And that's the thing. I was coming to South Africa for our launch, and we decided you've got to choose your battles. So if we could have said, okay, well, we're not, we've got to go back another layer. And we just thought, well, we can't. We've hired a PR person. I'm coming. We then have to go, we're doing it. Done is better. We can fix it on the next round, which is what we keep telling you. So I think what I wanted to say today is that when we tell you things, ask you things, demand things of you, we're also doing it. Like, I'm holding myself to that. So I've had to learn this is not heart surgery. So it does not have to be like millimeter by millimeter perfect. It just actually has to be, put your heart, wear it on your sleeve, put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the critical thing, the agonizing over any stage of this process is going to just hold you back. And I think that's so critical. It's just what a long journey it really is. Often writers say, I'm going to write a second book and a third book. This is my first book. And it's fabulous. If that happens for you, that is so lovely. But because it's so long and so expensive and so draining and such an investment of many things, try and make this book. If there's one thing you have, it's a one standalone product. I'm holding my, actually, if
Your
this,
first book.
This is my first book, hilarious enough. I picked up the wrong book. But, and, it doesn't matter how many little mistakes are in this, and I'm sure there will be little typos or typesetting errors. The excitement is that our message is out there. We're going to stand up in front of all our fabulous people and see them and talk to them, and that's exciting.
It is exciting. You were saying about just getting it out there, and that made me think of something. Yes, so all too often we say, like, get your first baby delivered. Because once you finish the first draft, the addiction, like, oh, I can write another one. And then number 1 sits there. So I've just gone, so this actually in terms of book is number 4, and I've just written number 5, which is why we got confused. But what I've done was I wrote first draft, but actually that is now completely set aside, and I'm putting all my energy into this until this is out in the world, because we've still got to get the digital copy up. We've still got to get the print-on-demand copy up. We've still got to put all those links up. Those aren't there, so it's not done yet. And then the first goal is always to sell the first 1,000 copies. That's like the first milestone, and then it can start climbing. So we've said we need to sell our first 1,000 copies. And that's the challenge. It's also the delight. It's also the stuff that makes you tired.
So we say write a book in 100 days. You're going to get a year to get it in your paws, and you're going to spend the next 3 years promoting it. And that's the long game of being an author. And if you're lucky, you'll spend the next 25 years promoting the same book, because there are authors out there, and those best-selling authors, and I think I spoke about on the bestseller list year after year, 20 years on the line, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And he's written various iterations, for children, for parents, for teenagers, whatever. But that book, he is still doing talks. He is still promoting that book. It is perennial. It is on the shelves. It is on every shelf in a bookshop, anywhere in the world. Not every shelf, your finance shelf, and a money shelf.
Along with interesting is it's I don't know if many of you know Brendan Burchard. He's a big brand, an expert leader in America. Brendan Burchard, great for non-fiction writers. And Paulo Coelho contacted him to launch his last book, the title of which has eluded me. And he said, Brendan, why I don't know why people are not buying my books. Oh, that's a bad accent. Anyway, and what Brendan said is people think you're dead. They think you are an old man and you are dead. And people don't know that you are still actually in the world delivering your material. So we need to bring you into the modern world. We need to show that you are alive and visible and a person, which is using modern media and social media. And because what happens is then the moment you do that, all your back copies, your back books start selling again. I'll never forget when my second book was launched. And suddenly I started selling more of my first book. Because it's just other people want a little bit of everything. So
you're all mostly on the first stage of this journey, but the next stages will come. They really will. And that's why our mantra is
done is better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect. Because if you're going to be perfect, chances are 5 years on the line, you're still going to be stuck on one of those. Maybe it's the cover approval where it's just not exact, or the layout and it's just not perfect.
Do you know, because it's always these little anecdotes. So literally, we're currently in Hot Bay, and I was waiting for Sarah, and I bumped into someone that I haven't seen for 5 years. And we had 20 minutes to just natter, literally on the outside of a coffee shop. And she says to me, I've got my cards. My cards are ready, but I've been sitting on them. I haven't done that final, but I just want to...
What cards are they?
Well, they're cards for yoga for children. But she's like, I just want to do one final edit. She said, but I've done so many. I've been sitting on them for years. I've got 50 people waiting. They're wanting these cards. And I said... She said, yes, I want to do this, and I want to tweak that, and I want to edit. I said, no, it's not about that. I said, what's the fear? And then she stopped. I was like, what's the fear that's stopping you from putting it out there? Because that's the bit that will trip you up. Because we can always do another edit. And we had this whole conversation around that. And I said, you've got 50 people waiting. I said, you're now messing with your reputation. And then our eyes got bigger, because that's the truth. It's like, I just said, just set a deadline and get it out there. And you can improve it on the second run. So sometimes we do just have to let go of any of the stories.
And exactly that. And then that's the road as an author. You've just got to march down and just keep going. I think that's where it's so hard. But anybody who's choosing to write a book and choosing to share their life on some level, or write a novel, is you really putting yourself out there. It's a brave journey, because it's far easier not to write anything. It's far easier to comment on other people's posts. But when you really are the person who's generating the content, you are the groundbreaker. It is challenging. It's confrontational. People can definitely tear you down, especially when you have your own face on the cover of the book, Kate. So I'm worried about that. So, you're opening yourself up. You're making yourself vulnerable. And that's also the beauty of being in the creative realm, being an author, being a writer, being anybody who works with literature or poetry or art, because that's what touches people.
And what we know happens is, that dream is always tapping on your shoulder, or tapping on your heart, or nudging your brain, going, but you want to write that book. You want to put it out there. And then the fear comes in, and the fear gets the better of you. But the calling is always there. And it's a longing, and like we often say, the yearning to write, and you've always got to dance between I don't know if I can, and who am I to, and I don't know if I know enough, and I can't write properly, versus the oh but come on, like your soul almost demands it of you, and you've got to dance between those two and let your soul and your spirit pull you through, and let the ego kind of settle on the side and just go for it and do it. Yeah, no, I'm looking at this cover.
So
I'm more
just-
worried that we just like the color is wrong, and I'm like, oh my goodness, and it's just
Doesn't
have to
matter.
love the book and
Does
let it
not
go.
matter. Love the message.
Love the message.
And with that, we're going to love you all and leave you and keep writing and keep pushing on and keep putting your voice out into the world.
Bravo.
Bravo.